Mes chers compatriotes,
My fellow countrymen, for years, that same feeling has gripped you, oppressed you, haunted you. A strange, penetrating feeling of dispossession. You walk down the streets of your towns and you don't recognize them. You look at your screens and they speak to you in a language that is strange and frankly foreign.
vous jetez un œil et une
You turn
oreille.
your eyes or ears to billboards, TV series, football matches, films, shows, songs, and your children's school books. You take subways and trains. You go to train stations and airports. You wait for your daughter or your son outside their school.
Attendez votre fille ou votre fils.
You take your mother to the hospital emergency room. You stand in line at the post office or at the employment agency. You wait at a police station or a courthouse, and you feel like you're no longer in the country you have known.
Connaissez. Vous vous souvenez du
You remember the country of your childhood. You remember the country your parents told you about. You remember the country you've seen in the movies and in books.
trouvé dans les films ou dans les livres.
The country of Joan of Arc, of Louis XIV, the country of Bonaparte and General de Gaulle, the country of the knights and the ladies, the country of Victor Hugo and Chateaubriand,
Et de Descartes. Le pays
the country of Pascal and Descartes, the country of La Fontaine's fables, Molière's characters and Racine's verses, the country of Notre-Dame de Paris and bell towers and the villages, the country of Gavroche and Cosette, the country of the barricades and Versailles, the country of Pasteur and Lavoisier, the country of Voltaire and Rousseau, of Clemenceau and the soldiers of the Great War, of de Gaulle and Jean Moulin.
et de Barbara.
The country of Jean Gabin and Alain Delon, of Brigitte Bardot and Belmondo, of Johnny Hallyday and Charles Aznavour, of Georges Brassens and Barbara, of the films of Claude Sautet and Henri Verneuil, this country of light-heartedness and brilliance, of literature and science, this country at once so intelligent and so capricious, the country of the Concorde and nuclear power plants, this country that invented the cinema and the automobile, this country that you look for everywhere, in despair, about which your children are homesick without even having known it, this country that you cherish and which is dying.
Vous n'avez pas déménagé.
You have not moved and yet you feel like you're no longer at home. You have not left your country, but it is as if your country has left you. You feel like outsiders in your own country. You are exiled from within. For long, you thought you were the only one to see, to hear, to think, to feel the fear. You were afraid to say it. You were ashamed of your feelings. For long, you didn't dare to say what you saw. And most of all, you did not dare to see what you saw. And then you said it to your wife, your husband, your children, your father, your mother, your friends, your colleagues, your neighbors. And then you said it to strangers, and you understood that your feeling of dispossession was shared by all. France was no longer France, and everyone had realized it. Of course, you were then despised. The powerful, the elites, the self-righteous, the journalists, the politicians, the academics, the sociologists, the trade unionists, the religious authorities told you that you were under an evil delusion, that you got it all wrong. But in time, you understood that they were the ones who were under a delusion, that they were the ones who were fake, that they were the ones who were hurting you. The death of our civilization is not the only question that nags at us, but it towers over all questions. Immigration is not the cause of all our problems, but it aggravates them all. The third worlding of our people impoverisheth them before it disintegrates them, ruins them as much as it torments them. This is why you often have a hard time making ends meet. This is why we must re-industrialize France, restore trade balance, reduce our growing debt, bring back to France our businesses that moved away, create jobs again for our unemployed. This is why we must protect our technological marvels and stop selling them off to foreigners. This is why we must allow our small businesses to live and grow and to be passed on from generation to generation. This is why we must preserve our architectural, cultural and natural heritage. This is why we must restore our republican education, its excellence and its belief in merit, and stop surrendering our children to the egalitarianist experiments of the pedagogists and to the Dr. Strangeloves of gender theory and Islamo-leftism. This is why we must take back our sovereignty, abandon to the technocrats and the European judges who have robbed the French people of their ability to control their destiny in the name of a fantasy of a Europe that will never be a nation. Yes, we must give power back to the people, take it back from the minorities who are ceaselessly tyrannizing the majority, and from the judges who substitute their legal dogma for the government of the people by the people for the people. For decades, our leaders of the right as well as the left have led us down this disastrous path of decline and decadence. Right and left, they have lied to you, concealed the gravity of our decline, hidden from you the reality of our replacement. You have known me for years. You know what I've been saying, diagnosing, predicting. For a long time, I have contented myself with the role of a journalist, writer, Cassandra, whistleblower. I believed then that some politician would carry forward the flame I was passing on to him. I said to myself, to each his profession, to each his role, to each his fight. I am now cured of that illusion. Like you, I no longer trust them. Like you, I have decided to take our destiny in hand. I have understood that no politician would have the courage to save our country from the tragic fate that awaits it. I have understood that all these so-called professionals were basically powerless. That President Macron, who presented himself as the new man, was in fact the synthesis of his two predecessors, only worse. That all parties satisfied themselves with superficial reforms while time ran out. It is no longer time to reform France. We have to save her. This is why I have decided to run for president. I have decided to ask for your vote to be your president of the Republic, so that our children and our grandchildren would not know barbarism, so that our daughters are not veiled and our sons not forced to submit, so that we can bequeath to them our France as we have known it and received it from our ancestors, so that we can preserve our way of life, our traditions, our language, our conversations, our debates about history or fashion, our taste for literature and cuisine, so that the French remain French, proud of their past and confident of their future, so that the French feel at home again, so that the newest arrivals assimilate into our culture, make our history their own, so that we become French people again in France and not foreigners in an unknown land. We the French are a great nation, a great people. Our glorious past calls us to our future. Our soldiers made great conquests in Europe and the world. Our great writers and artists have won universal admiration. The discoveries of our scientists and the products of our industrialists left their mark on their times. The charm of our art of living is the envy and joy of all those who have tasted it. We have known great victories and we have overcome cruel defeats. For 1,000 years we have been one of the powers that have written the history of the world. We will be worthy of our ancestors. We will not let ourselves be dominated, vassalized, conquered, colonized. We will not let ourselves be replaced. Facing us stands a cold and determined monster that will try and dishonor our name. They will tell you that you are racists. They will tell you that you are moved by dark passions, while it is the most beautiful of passions that moves you, the passion for France. They will say the worst things about me. But I will stand my ground. I will not be shaken by their jeers and their spittle. I will never bow my head because we have a mission to accomplish. The French people have been intimidated, crippled, indoctrinated, blamed, ridden with guilt. But they are raising their heads, dropping their masks, clearing the air of the fumes of the lies, chasing away their evil shepherds. We will carry on being France. We will continue the beautiful, noble French adventure. We will pass on the flame to the next generations. Help me, join me, stand up. We the French have always triumphed over everything. Long live the Republic, and above all, long live France.
For more such fine stories and video reports from field, subscribe to our channel, The New Indian.